Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that might shock you. Wisdom doesn't scream, it whispers. And if you're too busy chasing noise, you'll miss the truth that could change your life. I sat with a 92-year-old woman once, not just a grandmother, not just an elder, but a walking vault of legacy. 92 years of observation, heartbreak, success, and clarity. She didn't speak often, but when she did, every word hit like a hammer shaping steel. And she told me this: few men know the truth anymore. They're too busy trying to impress to actually improve. That's a fact. You see, most men are chasing the wrong thing. They're chasing flash over foundation. They pick partners like they pick cars, based on shine, not mileage. This woman told me, the man who learns to see beyond beauty will find peace beyond measure. Why? Because beauty fades. But value multiplies when it's nurtured. She watched men throw away queens for illusions and spend decades wondering why their kingdom never stood. She told me this too: you can't lead with ego and expect peace to follow. You see, pride makes loud promises, but purpose makes quiet moves. The men she respected weren't the ones who talked the most. They were the ones who showed up the most. They didn't try to dominate, they inspired. They didn't have to prove they were in charge. Their discipline made that clear. If you need to announce your power, you probably don't have it yet. One of the most powerful things she said was, money is a terrible master, but a powerful servant. She had lived through poverty and prosperity. She'd seen men gain wealth and lose their families. She told me, a man who measures his worth by his bank account will never be rich enough, but a man who measures it by how many people he can bless, he's already wealthy. She watched empires rise and fall, and the constant truth was this: money amplifies who you are. It doesn't change you, it exposes you. And then she leaned in, looked me in the eye, and said something I'll never forget: a man who can control his tongue can control his future. Her husband wasn't the strongest man in town, but when he spoke, people listened. He never tore her down with his words, never embarrassed her in front of others. He built his home with kindness, not control. In today's world, men think dominance is power. It's not. Restraint is power. A gentle word in a storm is what calms it. Strength isn't proven in how loud you get. It's revealed in how steady you stay. She also said the most successful men I knew weren't the fastest, smartest, or flashiest. They were the most consistent. Let that sink in. Not the biggest dreamers, the biggest doers. The ones who didn't just say they'd do it, they did it. Every day, when it was boring, when it was hard, when no one clapped, they showed up. You want to build a legacy? Show up more than you talk. And finally, she said something so raw, so real, it nearly brought me to tears. I stayed married for 63 years, not because it was easy, but because we never quit at the same time. That's real love. Not Instagram captions, not emotional highs. Loyalty in action. Holding the line when it's uncomfortable. Choosing to fight for what matters instead of looking for the exit every time things get hard. Gentlemen, this isn't just advice. This is a blueprint, a legacy, a warning, and an invitation. That's a fact. Few men know this, but if you learn it now, not at 92, you just might build something that lasts forever. You want to know one of the most costly mistakes a man can make? Choosing vanity over value. And most do it every single day without even realizing it. They're out here chasing approval, chasing likes, chasing women, chasing status. And all the while, the things that actually build peace, legacy, and meaning are sitting right in front of them, untouched. That 92-year-old woman told me, I watched men pass up solid women for the loud ones. I watched them walk away from stable opportunities because they weren't shiny enough. And I watched most of them circle back years later full of regret. She said the problem isn't that men don't have choices, It's that they don't value the right ones. Think about it. When you value how something looks over how it works, you're gambling your future on a fantasy. You see a woman and she's stunning, she lights up a room, but does she build or does she drain? Is she rooted in character or just decorated in charm? The same goes for how men pick careers, friendships, mentors. They chase what glitters, then wonder why it all turns to dust in their hands. Here's the truth. Gold isn't shiny when it's underground. Diamonds look like rocks before they're cut. Value doesn't always walk in with a spotlight. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it waits, and only the wise pay attention long enough to recognize it. That elderly woman told me her husband wasn't flashy. He didn't drive the nicest car. He didn't have a six-pack or a social media following, but he had integrity, he had consistency, and he had wisdom. And that's what made him rich. She said he made me feel safe. He made me feel chosen. And every year we were together, my value increased. Because I married a man who knew how to multiply, not just impress. A man who chases vanity is constantly empty. He's performing, he's pretending, he's peacocking. But a man who chases value, that man becomes dangerous in the best way. Because he's not fooled by the surface. He's looking at foundation. He's not just asking, how does this look today? He's asking, will this still be standing in 10 years? So if you're listening to this thinking, man, maybe I've been picking the wrong things, good. That's called awakening. Don't waste another year flexing for people who wouldn't show up for you in a storm. Start choosing things that won't disappear when the applause dies. Build with value, not vanity. That's how you win. That's how you last. That's how you lead. Let me tell you something that most men don't figure out until it's too late. Pride is loud, but purpose is lethal. Pride puffs you up, but purpose builds you up. And there's a massive difference between a man who's driven by ego and one who's led by mission. That 92-year-old woman looked me dead in the eye and said, I watched men destroy their families, lose their fortunes, and bury their peace, all because they needed to be right more than they needed to be wise. You see, pride makes you think you've arrived, even when you're lost. It'll have you fighting battles that don't matter, proving points no one asked for, and burning bridges just to feel tall. Pride wants to be seen. Purpose wants to serve. Pride wants credit. Purpose wants change. And here's the thing. Pride will always cost you more than it gives. She told me her husband never raised his voice to prove he was in charge. He didn't have to walk into a room and demand respect. He commanded it just by how he carried himself. There's a quiet confidence that comes from purpose. When a man knows why he's doing something, who he's doing it for, and what he's willing to sacrifice to get there, that man becomes unstoppable. But pride gets offended, pride compares, pride competes with people who aren't even in the same race. That's how you lose your focus, your edge, and eventually your destiny. The world tells men to be alpha, to dominate, to never back down. But real leadership isn't about dominating people. It's about developing them. It's about being the man who can take a hit without throwing a tantrum. It's about being so grounded in who you are that you don't need applause to feel valuable. Purpose is patient. Purpose plays the long game. Purpose makes you wake up early, show up when you're tired, love when it's inconvenient, and lead when it's lonely. Purpose says, I don't need you to see me now. I'll let the fruit speak for itself later. She said, my husband led our family with his decisions, not his dominance. And I never felt afraid to follow him because he never made it about himself. That's the kind of leadership men need to return to. Not chest pounding, not attention seeking, just focused, principled, unwavering purpose. So ask yourself, are you trying to look powerful or be powerful? Because one is temporary, the other is legacy. Let's clear something up right now. Wealth is not the goal. Impact is. Wealth is not the prize, it's the provision for purpose. That 92-year-old woman looked around at this modern world full of men flexing designer belts and leased cars, and she said something that stopped me cold. They've got all this stuff, but they don't own anything that matters. She wasn't impressed by status. She'd lived through times when money came and went, war, recession, struggle, rebuilding. She saw the truth firsthand. Money reveals more about your character than your bank account ever will. She told me money only magnifies who you already are. If you're selfish without it, you'll be dangerous with it. If you're generous without it, you'll be unstoppable with it. You see, a lot of men chase money like it's a finish line, but money is not the destination, it's just a vehicle. The real question is, where are you driving it? Because if you're not going somewhere meaningful, you'll crash every time. That's why you see rich men depressed, wealthy men divorced, high-income earners with no peace. They were so busy collecting trophies, they forgot to build a legacy. Her husband wasn't flashy, he wasn't rich in the way the world defines it, but he provided and he was consistent. He stewarded every dollar like it had a destiny attached to it. She said every time he brought money home, it didn't just pay the bills, it moved us forward. He built more than comfort. He built confidence in our future. Wealth in the hands of a man with purpose becomes seed. He plants it in his family, in his community, in people who need a lift. He multiplies impact. But in the hands of a man ruled by ego, wealth becomes a mirror, and all he does is admire himself until the lights go out. There's nothing wrong with having nice things. Let me be clear. Success is beautiful, prosperity is honorable, but if you're stacking cash just to be noticed, you're broke in the ways that matter most. The house means nothing if there's no peace inside it. The car means nothing if you're driving it to escape your own reflection. The lifestyle means nothing if you have no one real to share it with. That elderly woman said something I'll never forget. My husband left us more than money. He left us with principles, with wisdom, with a name that opens doors. That's real wealth. When your name carries weight because of who you were, not just what you earned. When your children don't just inherit assets, but they inherit standards. So don't make money your master, make it your servant. Don't chase wealth, chase purpose. And let wealth chase you as a result. That's how you turn a tool into a legacy. She told me something that still echoes in my head to this day. My husband was the strongest man I knew, but his strength was never in his hands, it was in his words. And you know what? That hit me. Because today, a lot of men think volume equals authority. They think raising their voice proves control. But the wisest men I've met, they don't yell, they speak. And when they speak, people lean in, not out of fear, but out of respect. A gentle tongue doesn't mean weak leadership. It means disciplined leadership. Anybody can fly off the handle. Anybody can snap when they're frustrated. Anybody can crush someone with their tone. That's easy. But to stay calm when you're angry, to correct without demeaning, to lead without belittling, that takes power under control. That's what real men do. That 92-year-old woman said, he never made me feel small. Even when I was wrong, he didn't shame me, he guided me. Now think about that. She was married to this man for decades. She lived a full lifetime by his side, and what stuck with her most wasn't his work ethic, his income, or his decisions. It was how he made her feel when he spoke. That's legacy. That's leadership that lasts. Men who can master their tongue are rare because your words carry weight, whether you realize it or not. You're either building with them or breaking with them. And it's not just about how you speak to others, it's how you speak to yourself too. If all you do is criticize yourself, downplay your worth, repeat the lies of past failures, then guess what? You'll live under those words. But if you start speaking with vision, with clarity, with intention, everything changes. She said, he spoke life into this family, into our sons, into me. He made us believe in who we could become. That's a man with a tongue like a chisel, carving greatness out of stone, not just throwing words like stones. Here's the truth. Harsh words are like a wildfire, quick to spread, slow to clean up. Gentle words, they're like water in a dry land, healing, soothing, powerful in their quietness. The right words at the right time, spoken the right way, can shift an atmosphere, change a heart, heal a wound, or even rewrite a future. So if you think manhood is about barking orders or being the loudest in the room, you've been sold a lie. The loudest man is usually the least listened to. But the one who controls his tone, chooses his timing, and aims his words with care, that man can move mountains without ever raising his voice. That's what she was saying, and that's what too many have forgotten. She looked at me, smiled softly, and said, you know what made my husband different? He kept showing up. And at first, it didn't hit me. But then she leaned in and added, not once in a while, not just when it was easy, every single day. See, that's where most men go wrong. They're chasing the big moment, the grand gesture, the flashy move, the overnight win. But life doesn't reward intensity, it rewards consistency. Anybody can hit the gym hard for a week. Anybody can show up strong for a month. Anybody can write down a vision, make a plan, feel inspired for a little while. But real men, real leaders, they stay in the fight long after the feeling is gone. Intensity is emotional. It comes and goes. Consistency is a decision. It's built in silence when no one's watching, when there's no applause, and it looks like nothing is changing. That's the grind. That's where character is forged. That's where empires are quietly built. That elderly woman told me her husband wasn't the most exciting man in the room. He didn't have a highlight real life. But she never had to wonder if he'd show up. She never had to guess if he meant what he said. He was the same man on Tuesday morning as he was on Sunday afternoon. He wasn't perfect, but he was present. He wasn't flashy, but he was faithful. And over time, that consistency built a fortress around their marriage, their children, and their future. See, intensity screams, look at me, but consistency says, watch what I build. Intensity makes promises, consistency delivers. Intensity is the firework, loud, bright, quick. Consistency is the sunrise, steady, certain, powerful over time. Which one do you think lasts? You want to be a better man? Be consistent. Be consistent in how you treat your partner, in how you show up for your kids, in how you speak, in how you manage your time, in how you keep your word. Stop trying to impress people for a moment. Start becoming someone they can count on forever. She told me there were days he didn't say much, but he never disappeared. He never shut down. He never walked away when it got hard. He kept plowing the field even when the harvest looked far off. And guess what? The harvest always came. So stop overvaluing hype and undervaluing habits. The man who wins is not the one who burns the brightest. It's the one who never stops burning at all. She was right. Intensity fades, but consistency, that builds legacies. She said it with a calm, almost matter-of-fact tone, the kind that comes from living the truth, not just talking about it. Love isn't a feeling, baby. It's loyalty in action. And when she said it, everything in me paused, because that right there, that's the part they don't tell you. That's the part the world has confused. They've sold us this idea that love is a rush, a spark, a caption, a vibe. But she lived through nearly 7 decades with one man, and what she learned was this: feelings fade, loyalty doesn't. She said, there were days I didn't feel butterflies. There were seasons we didn't even like each other, but we never quit at the same time, and that's why we made it. See, real love doesn't run when it gets hard. It digs deeper. It doesn't abandon ship when the waters get rough. It learns how to row harder. Real love is shown in the moments nobody sees. The sacrifice, the forgiveness, the staying when leaving would be easier. And let me tell you, that kind of love, it's not about flowers and dinners. It's about showing up every single day. She told me, I watched men fall out of love because they thought love was supposed to feel like the first week forever. And that's the lie most people believe, that if it stops feeling exciting, it's not love anymore. No, that just means it's real now. That means it's deeper than emotion. That means it's time to build something. Love, the kind that lasts, is a choice, a repeated decision to keep choosing that person, even when it's not convenient, even when they're wrong, even when you're tired. It's in how you protect them with your words when they're not in the room. It's in how you make space for their growth instead of demanding their perfection. It's in the late night talks, the compromise, the fights you work through, not walk away from. She said her husband wasn't a perfect man, but he was a present man. When things got tough, he leaned in. When she was sick, he carried the weight. When they didn't agree, he listened. He didn't just love her when it was easy. He loved her especially when it wasn't. That's the part that gets lost today. Too many people think love is proven in how much passion you can show in a moment. But real love is proven in how well you can hold someone through their process. It's how you weather the storm, not just how you enjoy the sunshine. So when she said love is loyalty in action, what she meant was, it's not about saying I love you. It's about backing it up when it costs you something. It's about being dependable, not just romantic. It's about being there when it's hard, when it's quiet, when it's mundane, because real love doesn't just look good, it holds steady. And that kind of love, that's the kind people remember. That's the kind that leaves a legacy. So what does it all come down to? It's simple, but it's not easy. That 92-year-old woman didn't give me trending advice. She gave me timeless truth. Truth most men overlook because they're too busy chasing noise, too distracted by the surface, too impatient to wait for real wisdom to do its work. She told me the things that actually matter: value over vanity, purpose over pride, wealth as a tool, not a trophy. She reminded me that power isn't in loudness, it's in discipline, that consistency outruns intensity every time. That love isn't what you feel, it's what you do over and over again. And the men who win, the ones who really build something that lasts, they don't just listen to advice like this, they live it. They become the kind of men their children can count on, their partner can trust, their community can lean on, and their future can be proud of, not because they were perfect, but because they were present, because they stayed, because they chose wisdom when the world offered shortcuts. So maybe it's time to stop chasing what looks good and start building what is good. Maybe it's time to stop performing and start planting. Maybe it's time to slow down, listen to voices like hers, and realize the real flex is being the man who lasts. Because at the end of your story, no one will care how loud you were, but they will remember how well you loved, how faithfully you led, and how consistently you showed up. That's a fact. Few men know it. but now you do.